All right. Thank you very much. Good morning, Coach.
Morning,
Last,
Lane.
last year, UMass was one of the youngest teams in the conference, and somehow this year they're still one of the youngest teams in the conference. But has their year of experience last year changed them at all in what you see preparing for tomorrow night?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, some of those young guys, even though you're right, by the program, they're still young, but they've had a year of experience and another half a year. And some of them, I think, have improved. You can see that. They've added some pieces, some young guys, some transfers that have definitely helped them. And they could really score the basketball. If you look at their stats, that they're scoring in so many different ways. But they definitely are a year older and a year better, and you can see that the way they play. And the one thing I will say is they're a confident team. They play with a swag and they play with the level of confidence that I think you need in this league, and they have that.
But they seem, being a young team, they seem like they're really up and down. Their schedule and their record kind of bears that out. Like they'll beat Rhode Island in overtime, but maybe lose another game like to Bryant that on paper you wouldn't think they would lose. When you show your guys the scout, what do you take from the up and down season they've had so far?
Well, number one, we showed them the game from last year, and they beat us. And a lot of these guys that are back for us played in that game. And we only had 9 guys, 8.5 really. But a lot of the guys that are here played in that game, and they beat us. So, that's number one. Number two, when you're building a program like Coach McCall is, and putting your stamp on it, you're trying to get signature wins to build momentum. And beating VCU would be a signature win for them. So they'll be ready. They'll be ready to go. As for, all young teams and trying to establish identity, you have ups and downs, and some of it is in results, or some of it is just during a game, the way you play. But they've had some games where they've lost where, they could have pulled it out for sure. But they didn't. And, that's what you got to go through as you're building a program, especially with a young rotation, a young lineup. And they're doing that, but they're plenty good enough to beat anybody in our league. And the way they score the ball really helps them.
Wayne, go ahead.
Good morning. One of the things Bones said after Saturday's game about Hassan was that Hassan plays a large part in kind of keeping you guys together defensively. So what roles does Hassan play in that, maybe as far as his communication and just helping to keep the guys organized on defense?
Yeah, well, number one, he cleans up a lot of mistakes, right? When people get biased or they throw the ball or it's dribble penetration, a play a defensive breakdown, he can clean up, people's messes that way because he can go after the ball around the rim. But so can Corey as well and some other guys. But Haas does it with those long arms and great instincts. So, he just keeps getting better and better. I'm really proud of his approach and his effort, and it's carrying over to games. And what you're seeing now is what, we saw when we recruited him, but we knew it would take some time just to mature in his role. Is we knew he'd have a presence around the rim, rebounding and blocking shots and getting in the way. But now he's starting to catch the ball in places to score it and, be comfortable away from the basket with the ball in his hands. And, he's starting to sort of stuff the stat sheet a little bit just because he's playing more and he's getting more comfortable and he's maturing. So, Bones is right. Guys love playing with him because he can clean up their mistakes at times. But it's also fun to throw to somebody who you can throw it vertical, right? And when we talk about that, not everybody in college basketball can play vertical where he's at. And when you can throw the ball there and know it's not going to get knocked away or turnover, that, your teammate's going to go get that and finish, that's a great strength to have. And I think it's only going to get better and better. So not only his defense has been very good, he's getting better offensively, and it's really helping us. And his teammates know that and appreciate that.
Mentioning his ability to play, above the rim, is that kind of just an intuition thing? Like that's something we saw even last year as a freshman early on, sort of his chemistry with the guards on lobs and things like that. And obviously that's kind of continued a lot this year. So just maybe his court vision and things like that, being able to get ahead of the defense, like that's something that for a guy who just started playing organized basketball as a sophomore in high school was kind of intuition for him.
Well, he's such a good mover, Wayne, right? He doesn't need the whole court to get the full speed. He can get the full speed in 2-3 steps. he can get by guys. And then, you know, if it's a 50-50 ball, but up in the air, he has a better chance to go and get it than anyone with his instincts, his long arms, and the way he moves. But the other part, I just think his basketball IQ and feel is getting better. So he's starting to understand moving without the ball, or getting past a hedge, or getting past help defense and getting to open areas is really helping him. The other thing too is our players look for him, right? You know, for him to do that stuff, he has got to have teammates that are seeing that and getting him the ball, and they're helping him look good when he finishes. So it's a little bit of both, but I think Hassan is just, you know, his basketball IQ is getting better in feel, and because the way he moves and his feel is getting better, he's having more success in finishing around the rim and on the move, and it's really helping him and helping us.
If I could ask one more, of course, Trey Mitchell has been sort of the point guy for UMass. Took a knock at the end of the game against Davidson, but what growth have you seen in him now this year in his second year, and how big of a factor will maybe possibly Hassan play in his defense against Trey tomorrow?
Yeah, we're going to have to guard him. Number one, we're going to have to guard him with multiple guys for sure. I mean, you know, the number one thing is if he can't touch it, he can't score. But, you know, he has such a great feel, Trey, of catching the ball in different places, using his big body to get angles on you. The second you relax on him away from the ball, he's going to get an angle to score. And then the other thing, he does a really good job of stepping away from the basket and putting on the floor by guys as a big guy at his size. Does a good job of making threes if you're not ready for it. So you got to guard him different ways and with different guys. But I also think his game's evolved, the way he's passing the ball, the way he's getting his teammates involved, the way he rebounds on both ends now. I think he offensive rebounds better now than he has in the past, and he's drawn a lot of fouls. So we got to guard him. Haas is going to guard him. Everyone's going to guard him, but Haas is going to guard him, and he's going to have to make sure that he does a good job of really dancing or in the post and moving around and using his length and athleticism and his bounce to his advantage.
Thank you.
Noah, go ahead.
Kind of going off what Wayne was talking about with Hassan, is there anything that you've seen from him this year that kind of surprised you, that you weren't expecting to see so quickly from him?
Good question, Noah. I just think he's starting to understand how hard he has to play all the time. Not that he didn't play hard or practiced hard in the past, but he's getting to a different level, and I think he has a couple other levels beyond that we got to continue to push him to. I think sometimes when you start having success in games, you realize what you're doing, the process of what you're doing is working. And I think he's sticking to that process. That's the biggest thing, him just understanding the whole journey of this, right? The process. This is all new to him. He wasn't, you know, playing AAU basketball around trainers since he was 6, 7, 8 years old, right? So a lot of this is new to him, and he's doing a good job of taking it all in and understanding, man, this is working. I got to keep doing that. So probably just his approach has been impressive to me, and I still think he can get a lot better, and we're going to continue to push him to find that.
And then what have you seen, I guess, from him and Corey and the older guys, and how he's been, I guess, trying to learn and grow from some of the guys who've been playing basketball a lot longer?
Well, I just think that the older guys help him, talk to him, listen to him. You know, he does a really good job of listening to Coach Scott. Big B and he have a good relationship, and Big B gets after him, but he does a great job of explaining the why part. You can jump on a guy all the time, but if he doesn't know why, he's not going to do it, you know, head first, all in. Hassan does a good job of listening to the why part of it from Coach Scott and from Corey and Levi, some older guys, and I think that's really helped him get better quicker than maybe some other guys.
Sean Robertson.
Thanks, Chris. Hey, Mike, how you doing?
All right, how you?
Doing good. Hey, you mentioned earlier about UMass trying to find their identity. And with you guys being, you know, going on to your 16th game this season, do you get the sense that your team has found their identity?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I think so. Look, we're still a young team, and I still think we can continue to keep improving and get better. But man, we've shown some really, you know, throughout this whole year, we've showed some really high level basketball and doing things the right way. But like every other team, there's a level of inconsistency that hurts you too. And, you saw that the other day at St. Bonaventure's. Everybody was going nuts on our first half, and everybody was going nuts about our second half, right? And just that it's that quick that things can go south, right? And, we got to continue to address the issues that are holding us back, like turnovers, right? And quick shots. But then the other side of it is, our defense with a young team really improved quick throughout this year to be one of the better defensive teams in the country statistically, and getting big stops when we need it, and having young guys out there to do that. That's a great step for us, and that's our identity. Our style of play is our identity, and the guys and our young guys have really bought into that. But also, we still have a level of inconsistencies that we got to continue to harp on, to work on, and get better. And man, I'll tell you, if we can just turn the ball over 4 times less a game, right? That's a huge difference. A huge difference. But we haven't done it yet. And I take responsibility as the head coach. I gotta continue to stay on these guys, but I also don't want them to be paralyzed and be robots out there, because that doesn't work. That's when you're not at your best offensively or defensively, if you're looking over your shoulder all the time. But man, 4 less turnovers a game, a couple less quick shots a game, and that's another level we can get to. So that's the stuff we just got to continue to work on. Will it happen tomorrow? It'd be great if it did, right, and stay that way. But it might not happen a couple more games, or when it does. But we got to keep pushing for that all the time. So.
And if I can ask one more, I know you mentioned after the game Saturday, you thought Ace, despite the numbers, played arguably his best all-around game of the season. He's going to be playing against some good guards against UMass tomorrow. What did you see from him that made you say that? And do you think that will translate into this matchup tomorrow night?
Yeah, I'm going to address this, and I really don't care if I'm not trying to disrespect anyone. That's a fair and honest question. But when you're a college point guard and you play college basketball, the number one thing is winning. I am so sick and tired of people that think they know all this and know basketball, and the first thing they say is despite us. And I'm not picking on you or your question, but in the world of basketball now, everybody thinks they know. Every college coach, professional coach, any coach, Olympic coach, they want a point guard that makes their team win. I could care less about stats. I'll tell you one thing. For a freshman and the way he's played this year, we wouldn't be where we're at if it wasn't for him. And a lot of people sold us down the river before the season started, and now look at where we're at. He has a lot to do with it. But I'm so sick of people saying despite stats or despite his line. Go back and watch the tape and watch how he played, and watch how he guarded, and watch how he ran his team, watch how he pressed the ball up the court. Watch how he got our offense started, and the efficiency of our offense. And I don't compare players with other players, but I use other players as references. And compare Ace Baldwin's stats with Eric Maynard's stats when he was a freshman, or B.A. Walker's, or Darius Diaz, or Briante, or Joey's, or Jaquan Lewis. That will tell you something. But also look at plus minus and look how he guards. And the kid's a freaking winner. And I'm so glad he's on my team. But I am, and I'm sorry that I'm going off, but I've been holding on this one for a while. You want a reputation in college and team sports when you're the point guard or the quarterback or whatever it is. But, man, that kid freaking wins. Ace wins.
I won't use that no more.
Wes?
Wes?
But I'm going to change my question since you just brought that up. What are some of the things that Ace has? Because unfortunately this year we just don't have as much communication with these guys. What are some of his intangibles where maybe you could do more things with him, even though he's a first-year freshman, compared to other first-year freshman point guards?
Yeah, well, number one is he can guard the ball, right? He can guard the ball in the press. He can guard scores. He can guard guys that want to use ball screens and he doesn't let them. You saw that the other day on Saturday, guarding one of the best players in the league. The other side of it, he has such a level-headedness. He doesn't have to shoot the ball for a whole game, and he's one of the best players out there. He gets people shots. He keeps his teammates happy. He makes the right decision. He's like a quarterback that knows when to throw it out of bounds, when to tuck it, when to get the right guy the ball at the right time. I think for a freshman, the reading a ball screen, he's years ahead of that compared to other guys I've coached who turned into a heck of really good players here, right? And then his willingness to do what it takes to win, from a drill in practice to scrimmage to a game. The kid wants to win, and he's been like that since he's got here. And I think he can get a lot better too. And this offseason, this preseason, he was dealing with some injuries in high school that he just sort of blew off, a broken wrist, a broken ankle, and all that stuff. That stuff, he was one of these guys that cut the cast off of his ankle and of his hand just to play with his team. And he's still, those some prolonged injuries he's still messing with. And I can't wait to get him in an off season where we get him on the track and in the weight room. And there's another level of him like Hassan that I'm excited about.
All right, we got time for a couple more. Lane?
Coach, last week, CBS Sports did a survey of a bunch of coaches across the country. I don't know if they reached out to you or not about conference tournaments and whether they thought they were necessary or should be played this year. Do you have an opinion one way or the other on whether or not the conference tournaments should be played given where we are right now? And could you see teams whose NCAA fate is already determined one way or the other opting out of them as we get?
I do see teams opting out of it if they know that they're a shoe-in for the NCAA tournament. I think some coaches are already talking to other coaches and thinking about that. I think that the conference tournaments are awesome, right? We all dream of being a part of those. I'm all for it, as long, like I've been saying since June 5th when we got back together again, as long as it's safe and healthy for our players and our staffs and everybody involved. If we have a great plan and it's not foolproof, but if our conference does things like our administration is doing for us here, then I'll feel great about it. And that's because number one is the safety and well-being of our players and our staff. So yeah. And look, my biggest thing, you've heard me say this, Lane, with all this craziness of this pandemic since June 5th, our guys being together and the sacrifices they made, like so many athletes all over the country, right? I think we reward them with games. They're here because they want to put that uniform on all the time. That morning when we had to tell them they couldn't play Davidson here, they were heartbroken. And that was just a false alarm. Look at St. Louis, who's been out for 28 days, or Richmond's been out for 2 weeks, and some other teams, craziness like that. So if our guys can play, let's play. Because I know if we had to vote as a team, it'd probably be unanimous. They want a ball. And I think my big thing is I want them to get to 27 regular season games because they deserve it. And I'll push for that as long as it's safe and healthy. If they get a couple more in a conference tournament, great for them. Anything after that would be awesome. But they didn't ask me my opinion.
We'll go to Noah, and then Wayne will be the last one.
Coach, you talked about, I guess, the inconsistencies this year in the second half. Did this past weekend's game kind of prove to the team that they can do it? And then what were you able to show them on film, I guess, comparing that one to St. Bonaventure, where the first half was kind of similar, having a big lead going into the break? So was there things on film that you were able to point out saying, if you just keep doing this right, then it'll still work out for you?
Yeah, I wish it was that easy, right, Noah? It's that you use tape for to learn, right? To grow from the good stuff, make them feel great, build confidence, and that reassures them. The bad stuff, like last Wednesday, second half, I didn't show as many clips as I wanted to, right? I wanted to show them the whole darn thing. But the biggest thing was our response to adversity, Noah. That was the biggest thing. We have some young, emotional guys, at times it's a strength. Our energy, our swag, our emotion, whatever you want to call it, is a strength. At times it really hurts us. It kills us. That game that second half was so different from the second half against Dayton was because we responded to some things that didn't go our way. Wednesday the wrong way, Saturday the right way. But we also responded to success and things that were working. Stick with it, good mindset. So, I hope we really grew from the second half of St. Bonaventures. I've said this in the beginning of the year, and I'll continue to say it. I've coached long enough. You've all seen it. You're around sports long enough. Young teams got to go through some stuff, man. And, we had to go through that second half. Did I like it? No way. It was no fun at all. And sometimes you got to go through that stuff, and you got to get knocked over. You got to get whooped to make you realize how you got to do things the right way all the time. How do you got to respond to adversity? How you got to get out of your own self, and that's including me as the head coach. Because if I'm really fighting it, right, and I'm emotional, the players are going to be as well, and they're not going to play as well. So it's everybody in our program. We got to learn from that. And we had a good response second half on Saturday against Dayton, but doesn't mean it's going to happen tomorrow. We got to continue to work on it all the time.
Good, Wayne.
One quick last one. I want to ask you about Arnold Henderson. He's a guy, it seems like he's become a little bit of a fan favorite. You hear the "We Want Arnold," chants late in the game. Like Saturday was another instance of that. I was curious. He's a guy obviously grew up in the Richmond area. Was a former ball boy. Followed VCU growing up. What has he brought to the program kind of behind closed doors? Like I interviewed Chris Gaines earlier this month. He mentioned Arnold helping out with rebounding and things like that. So a guy obviously doesn't always get a chance to play a lot in games, but what has he brought behind closed doors to help elevate your program?
Well, number one, he's as much a part of the program as important to us as anybody else on the team. From day one, Arnold didn't ask to be treated any differently or looked at any differently. He sweats with our players every day, and he gets commended and yelled at every day, just like everybody else, to get better and keep improving. And, a great example, I left the gym, the office last night at almost 9:00. And as I was walking out, he was on the gun machine shooting on it by himself. And, the thing about him, number one, he's a great kid from a great family. He happened to just love VCU his whole life, right? Being a local kid. Didn't have the opportunity to come here, which doesn't happen for everybody. And the way he's approached it, number one, as a teammate. Number two is doing things the right way on and off the court. He's doing great in school. He's leading by example that way. And then, every day he's about the right things. He's about his team. He's about helping his teammates. What can I do, coach, to help us? And, he's done a super job. I'm really proud of him. I want more from him, without a doubt, because he's such a great kid, and I'm going to continue to push him. But he's going to be a leader. When he graduates from here, he's going to be a leader. And I want his experience here at VCU to help him do that. But he's really respected by his teammates. He has great relationships with his teammates. And those are the type of guys you want in your program. So he's been great. He's been a fan favorite for a long, long time. And when they're yelling his name, that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. So I hope they yell his name a lot for the next few years.